Everybody, one and all, thank you. Out in podcast land, back we are with another Different Strings episode, podcast adjacent guitar. And if you watch a lot of Star Wars, all that'll make sense. We're back here, me and Andrew. I'm your host, and Andrew's your host. We are co-hosts.
That's how co-hosting works.
That is. So Andrew, say hello to everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
And this week, we're going to talk about essential upgrades and especially DIY mods, because you can pay somebody to upgrade your guitar, but you can also do it yourself. And when you gain the confidence and skills needed to DIY your guitars, it becomes not just science making your guitar sound better, but art. And it's completely creative and interpretive, and it makes the guitar sound and play exactly the way you want it to. But before we do any of that, as I choke on my own saliva, Andrew, please tell everyone where they can find us on that there old internet.
On the interwebs, you can find us at www. Wait, do you even have to type? No, don't even type the W's. If you do that, you're a boomer. differentstringspodcast.com. And before Wes asks, because he will, again, here's what you can find on that website: blog posts, links to past episodes, and other nonsense. Just utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense.
Yeah,
kind of like the pieces
droppings
of this podcast that Andrew used to edit out, and I pod shamed him into stopping editing that.
You literally bullied me into not doing the bare minimum.
Yes,
and I respect you for it and applaud you.
And by bullying, he means I said I don't do that on my podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, it was some severe arm twisting.
Yeah,
The conversation went like this: Wes, it's taking me forever. I don't do that. Problem solved.
Oh, and today our opening act is going to be timely, because this episode, even though we record in advance, the episodes do come out fairly frequently, and this will still be a topic of discussion and internet. I'm going to go with fame. By the time this episode comes out, we're going to talk about the brand new JHS. We can't call it a pedal because it's not a pedal.
He's not selling a pedal
kit.
He's selling a pedal kit,
and it's called the Nauticlon.
Dope.
And it's like, I like JHS. I've had a couple of their pedals.
Me too.
And like most things, I buy them used because I'm cheap. And
so he's getting none of your money.
yeah. So Josh and his 34 employees get nothing from me. No, but I bought what did I buy new? They came out with the 3 series, the plain white milk, plain white tees of pedals that were all had the same enclosure, 3 knobs and a switch.
His back to basics series, right?
Yeah, his back to basics, and they were $99. And I was putting together a second pedal board, and I needed another chorus pedal, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy another CE2 because those things are ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. As are the Wazacrafts.
Yeah, as are the Wazacrafts. And I already had a Wazacraft and a real CE2. So I wasn't going to get another one of those because my original CE2 is a little busted. It works for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then
when you step on it.
Well, no, it'll work. But even when it's not on, it will then start to cut out after about 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know why. But, and I didn't even know about it at first because I wasn't on their mailing list. And so I couldn't get one of the first 3,000 that they sold, that they shipped more or less immediately. So I got waitlisted, and I hipped you to this, Andrew. And so we ordered ours not too far apart. My order number is, let me look at it to make sure I'm not lying here. My order number is 6968.
6975.
Yeah, so we ordered within minutes of each other, maybe perhaps even within seconds of each other.
Well, and I ordered mine within seconds of you showing it to me and telling me about it. And I also wasn't hip to it. I didn't know it came out.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. I thought I was a JHS dude, and I thought I was getting all his promotional stuff. Apparently not.
Apparently not. Shame on you.
Shame.
But they do a lot of really cool stuff, and I think this is really cool because apparently at one point in time, Josh promised the guy who invented the original Klon Centaur that he would never make a Klon clone. So he's not making a Klon clone. He's making you make it. He gives you all the pieces to make it, and then you have to make it. And the video is hilarious.
Yeah, and so to be clear, it's a solderless kit. The tools are attached to the board.
PCB.
You
Yeah.
break off the tools from the board. It's genius. It's brilliant, I think.
It's so simple, a child could do it.
Hence the marketing video where his child and
his child does it.
Someone else's child. And so Stu Mac sells pedal kits. They're traditional solder kits.
Yeah.
And I thought about grabbing one and putting one together. And I thought, I don't know, like I'm kind of pressed for time these days. I don't really need more pedals. So I don't need to buy a Stu Mac kit. And yet when I saw this, just out of appreciation for the thumb in the nose of the industry that JHS is essentially giving, I had to buy it immediately. I thought this is, if other pedal companies don't start doing this, and or if he doesn't do this again, it'll be a miracle. I think it's brilliant. Everything down to the packaging, the IKEA trade dress look of the box.
It's hilarious.
Including the what is it over the O? That's not an umlaut, is it?
Yeah, it is called an umlaut.
Okay, thank you. I had to make sure I got that right with the history professor in front of me. Well,
and the linguistics aficionado, because what the umlaut does is it takes that vowel and it adds an E sound to it. So technically you don't say not a clone, you say not a clone.
It's another level of brilliance.
Yeah, if you were spelling that out, if it were German and you were spelling it out on a typewriter or a computer that didn't have umlauts, you would type K-L-O-E-N.
K-L-O-E-N. Oh, and it would be pronounced clone. Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
So as soon as you hit me to this, I had to buy it.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a great idea.
And not only is it a great idea, and not only is it going to sound great, but it's going to be fun to build on air together.
Yeah.
Because your idea was, let's build it on the podcast right here for everyone. And now I realize it'll probably take 15 minutes.
Yeah. If that, what we'll have to do is we'll have to get good and liquored up first. And then God,
that's such a great idea. This is why they pay you. This is why I pay you the big bucks to do this.
That's right, both of them. Yeah. But it's right for $99. You get the little kit. You get to say, "Oh, I built that pedal." Right. And you get a clone, and everybody loves a clone. Even I hated clones for a long time, and now I use clones.
Not only have I never used a clone, I've never wanted a clone until this clone. If I say clone 3 more times, Bill shows up at the house and beats me over the head with a KTR.
Doesn't he live near you?
I don't know. So the story behind that whole promise was Josh, he tells the story, so I'm not going to like retell it, and he tells it better, and he'll probably tell it more accurately than I'm about to. But essentially,
it's his story.
Bill said, just don't build them while I'm building them.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, like right. And so Josh is like, hey, I respect Bill and what he brought to the pedal world, and he's like, I can do that. And then Bill stopped building them, and everyone else on the frigging planet started releasing clones. You can't swing a dead cat in Nashville without hitting a clone. And Josh continued to honor his promise to Bill like a gentleman.
And the best part, I think the best part of the clone story is that Bill built them and sold them for what I think were reasonable prices. They were high-end pedals at the time that they were new, and he was actively making them.
Adjusting for inflation, they'd be $450 today.
Right, which is a high-end pedal.
Really high-end pedal.
But given the ridiculous amount of money that they sell used for,
$8,000.
he clearly, and that's not an apocryphal story, folks. Somebody on the gear page. Now, of course, they could lie, right? I mean, the internet is full of truth. You know, had credible proof that they sold their clone for $8,000 or real close to it.
If you go to Reverb and search for completed listings, you'll
they're
find clones going for $4, $5, $6,000 regularly because guitar players are impatient and occasionally stupid.
Yeah, once or twice.
And I don't know. Look, Klon is not okay. First of all, great sounding pedal. It's not magic, right? The clones sound as good as the original.
It's an overdrive pedal. That's really all it is.
Using technology that's been around since the 50s, diodes, resistors. It's so you're paying $8,000 for that. What, for a cool story? I mean, I don't know, like
bragging rights,
I guess. Like, if you have $8,000 to drop on a pedal, more power to you. I don't know. Like, I look around my room. I'm like, well, I've dropped a lot of money on guitars. They're guitars.
Yeah, they're whole guitars.
Different. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the not a clone, not a clone. That's not a clone, and I'm looking forward to building my clone.
Me too. And I think kind of one of my favorite things about it, and I think it's hilarious that he did that, is it comes with a tube of goop labeled goop, right? Because one of the things that the Centaurs are infamous for is that Bill covered part of the circuit with this
epoxy.
Impermeable black epoxy, so people couldn't copy a circuit.
That back in the 90s, no one knew how to get into that stuff.
Right. It was years before people figured out how to ungoop them.
Early 2000s, people learned how to chip away at that stuff, and next thing you knew, the circuits were all over the internet.
Yeah, but the circuit board of the Not a Clone has the diodes in a square in a circle marked goop, and you put the goop right on it.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. And I think one of the kids said that was their favorite part.
And you know what? I'm going to goop mine.
Okay.
Because I don't want anyone copying
your circuit.
My clone.
Yeah. So
I don't want anyone copying my copy. If it's my copy, you are not allowed to copy my copy.
Yeah. So according to the video that Josh put out that I saw today, they made 3,000 of them. They figured, we'll sell 3,000 of these. And they sold them so fast that they threw up a new page for pre-orders, and they've already sold another 9,000 pre-orders. And they've made capacity to sell another 8,000 beyond that.
When are we going to get ours? Was it 2017? 2,800? And I might as well buy a clone.
You might, at this point. No, you should get yours according to the email and the video. We're in batch 3, which is order numbers 6,800 to 11,000. And we should get ours sometime in mid-January, possibly early February.
Okay.
Right. And Josh was very specific on his video to remind people that there's only 35 people working at JHS, which to me sounds like a lot of people for a pedal company. And they still got to fulfill all their other orders for not just people, but for dealers all over the world. So,
well, I saw that his kids build one, so why aren't his kids should be working at the factory is all I'm saying.
Well, they might have school. They might have school.
What? I don't know. Well, one of the I believe his son asked if he could drop out of school to start building pedals.
Yeah. That
kid's going places.
That's probably an offline conversation for them.
All right. Well, I'm just saying.
But I think this is
aim high, kid.
It's a great opening act for our headliner today because it is the easiest pedal kit on the face of the earth. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need any skill. All you have to be able to do is follow very simple IKEA style instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't handle that, you can watch the video and watch these little kids put theirs together, and then you can put yours together by watching the little kids. And
He
if
didn't,
seriously, if they can do it, I can do it.
folks, he did not mean that to sound condescending
Uh,
AF.
I think, well, I think I meant it to sound condescending, not condescending AF. All right. So our headliner, of course, is DIY upgrades and mods, things that certainly that we've done. And we'll talk a little bit about some non-DIY stuff at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But the DIY stuff, I looked at your list, and I think I've done almost all of these things.
I think so too.
And I've done a bunch of other stuff too.
Well, and I want you to bring that up and maybe even add them to list as we go. And I definitely want to hear your thoughts on like why. Well, I'll back up. You mentioned earlier that the whole reason that we are suggesting DIY is because there is at least, okay, I get a certain amount of joy and pleasure out of knowing that I can tweak my guitar to the point where it is just about perfect for me.
Yeah.
Because you worked in a shop, I worked in a shop. You can set up a guitar perfectly, and then the customer comes in and goes, could you raise the action, lower the action? Can you give a little less, a little more of the, relief? It's like, okay, because we are very specific. And if you learn to do that for yourself, first of all, humongous freedom.
Yeah.
Because now you have the confidence to grab a guitar pretty much from anywhere, buy it from anywhere, it gets to your house, and you can make it yours. That's a great feeling, and not have to pay someone else to do that.
Yeah. 30 minutes later, it's cost you
yeah,
a little bit of time and a set of strings, and the guitar plays exactly the way you want it to.
Yep. But the other reason we suggest doing this, besides the satisfaction, is, some guitars are just really good, but they're not great.
Yeah.
But all it takes to make them great, little bit of work. Like the guy, we had the episode where we answered the guy's question about, do I sell my Strat or just replace the pickups? We're like,
replace the pickups.
Replace the pickups. That is a 1 hour job that is basically going to transform that instrument before you sell it. So these are just things you can do to make it either good if it's not good, or great or incredible if it's already like most of the way there.
Yeah. And I think the number one DIY that I think you can do is set up your own guitar. And when I say setup, I mean full, from the nut to the saddles setup and everything in between. Because a lot of people think setting up is just, you restring it, you tune it, you set the intonation, maybe tweak the action a little bit, maybe adjust the neck, to get a little less or more relief, whatever. And that's kind of the common perception of a setup. But
that's a field setup.
It's a field setup. But you take that to a tech, it's going to cost you $100
or more, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And that's, plus strings, right? So to me, the setup also involves making sure that the bridge is level, that it, especially if you have a whammy bridge of any sort, meaning that also it floats or not at the point and pressure that you want it to, which can almost be, if you're talking about a Strat style guitar, can almost be voodoo, right? I think a Floyd Rose is eminently easier to set up than a standard Strat bridge, because
really,
you make it parallel and you put in how many springs you want in it and you're done. But with a Strat style bridge, you don't have that locking at both ends, so you really have to tweak it to get it perfect so that it stays in tune when you use it. I mean, I've got one of my Strats is set up, and I'm not bragging. I am bragging a little bit on myself, but I put a lot of effort and even some money into it, because I paid somebody else to cut a perfect nut for it. And I can dive bomb on that Strat and it comes back in tune.
Yeah.
But it took me hours and hours to get it sprung just the right tension, just the right height. It was not the most fun setup I've done, but the results are undeniable.
Yeah.
Right.
And you knew how to do that. Now,
yeah.
so
and before we move on from that, though, I want to interrupt you. I think another important part of the setup that a lot of people overlook, especially when it comes to how your guitar sounds, is setting your pickup height. And if you have screw coils or screw poles, excuse me, tweaking the height of the poles to give you the balance across the strings that you want. A lot of times when people have brought their guitars to me and go, listen, I like the way it plays. I don't have money to put in new pickups, but the sound bothers me. I can't tell you how many times I've taken that guitar, spent 5 minutes with a tiny flathead screwdriver tweaking the height of the screw coil on the humbucker, and give it back to them, and they're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted it to sound like.
Because the strings sometimes follow the shape of the neck, which is rounded in some cases, and if the poles don't do that, you sometimes lose a little bit.
Yeah, and some strings have hotter output than other strings that are next to them. Like the G string is usually pretty loud compared to the B string. That's why Strat pickups, especially, so many of them have staggered poles. So to me, setting the pickup height and tweaking the pole height, if possible, is also a big part of the setup when it comes to sound, because a lot of people overlook that.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's a great point.
Yeah, and I think on some guitars, depending on the pickups, the factory spec for how far away from the strings the pickups should be is not perfect for most people.
No,
you
I
know,
adjust
and
it. Yep.
yeah, and if you get too close, then you know you can affect the tuning, because those little poles are magnetic, right? If you get too far, you're really cutting down on the output. And if you start with a low output pickup in the first place and you move the pickup too far away, you're just not taking full advantage of the pickup's capabilities in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of the DIY process that people really overlook.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're not setting up your guitar with a small amp right next to you at the time to play test everything, you're making your job a lot harder.
Yeah.
So no, I think another part of the setup process, for me at least, is cleaning the frets really well. Getting that layer of schmutz, as we say in the community, off of those frets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's a lot of ways you can do that. And, I've gone as drastic as taping off the fretboard and using, what is that called? I knew I would forget it in the moment.
Steel wool?
Micro mesh.
Micro mesh. Ooh,
Yeah.
That's even better than steel wool.
Yeah. So
that's fancy.
Yeah, well, and it's also time consuming, but now there's a new product that you get on the Amazons. If you have a standard scale guitar, like a Les Paul scale or a Fender scale, where it's a long piece of very thin sheet metal that you just
you put it on there and tape it down, and then you can just go at it.
Yeah, and I have used that, and that's actually pretty cool.
It's like a cheat code for fretwork.
Yep. And then just recently I got the impregnated cloth with that like really good, like it's not flitz, it's something else. Again, like this is old age brain, like I can't remember the name of this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a special polishing cloth that has the polishing compound in the cloth. And by the way, it smells of coconut and is delightful just to have in the toolbox.
Is delightful.
But I'm using that on the frets now. And I think that's an important part of setting up, is getting your guitar to feel smooth and make it play great. And I also feel like a little bit of maintenance, lubricating the saddles, the hardware.
Like, or even just, I mean, sometimes you with the saddles, you've got metal on metal contact, and they can develop burrs over time.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you notice that you're breaking strings, and it's the same string, it seems to be the same string. If you have a traditional S style bridge and it will never stay in tune if you touch the bar, then you could have rough surfaces on the pivot points on your saddles.
Yep.
And if you go after that with just a little bit of a file, and I like to follow up with some super fine sandpaper, that can make a huge difference, a huge difference.
Yep. So I think, folks, what we're saying, what it took us nearly 15 minutes to drive home, is it's the best DIY upgrade on your guitar is learning how to do a setup.
Yeah.
Full setup, soup to nuts, or
Yeah.
saddle to nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was pretty good.
All right. The next, and probably
But the actual DIY stuff that we came here to talk to you about before Wes changed the subject,
the most common DIY upgrade that anyone has ever made on a guitar: pickups.
Pickups,
We
absolutely.
talk about it all the time.
We do.
Yep. So, you can take an $800, $700, or even a $600. You can even take a $200 guitar and really up your game with a set of pickups. I had a P bass, a Squire P bass, that was okay. It was an okay bass.
Yeah.
And I put a Nordstrand pickup in there, and it took that thing from okay to Holy Toledo.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Wowzers, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kids,
I did this.
It was hot.
I did a similar thing a couple times. I mean, of course, you know, when I was younger, all of my guitars were cheap, and a lot of them were kind of busted, to be perfectly honest. So putting pickups in, I was a big Seymour Duncan fan. I liked the 59, of course. I liked the JB. I liked the Pearly Gates when that first came out. That was a good pickup. And I got one of those. I got one of those Hello Kitty Squire Strats.
Yeah,
because
as you do.
Well, my daughter loved Hello Kitty, and she was learning how to play guitar, so I thought I'd get her one. And then I got it home, and I was like, "Wow, this guitar is terrible," and it sounded like it sounded like you were playing it through a wet paper sack. Right. So it just, the pickup was terrible. The volume pot was notchy, you know, like it was not smooth at all. So I put a really good Seymour Duncan pickup in it, and a brand new full-size CTS pot, a good jack, a CTS jack, or a Switchcraft jack, excuse me. And it took the thing from ho-hum to holy cow in that much time.
I was also a Duncan fan and a George Lynch fan, as you may have remembered.
Yes, I remember.
Our Lynch
one of
discussion.
Our Music That Matters. Yeah.
Go listen to it, kids. I might have put a Seymour Duncan Screamin' Demon in about 7 million guitars in the 80s and 90s. And I know that sounds like that's going to be a super high output pickup. It is not.
It's not really.
Not a ceramic magnet. It was probably just like a slightly hotter Les Paul type pickup. Probably one of my favorite all-time pickups. I until maybe last year, I still had one floating around this house that I was thinking of putting in something. But another cool story. In addition to being a big Seymour Duncan fan, I was also a big John Petrucci fan when that gentleman hit the market. And for a while, I was chasing that man's tone, which was impossible back then because he was using, Mark II C pluses and I was using crates. But anyway,
yeah. Didn't he go DiMarzio? Am I remembering that correctly?
He was DiMarzio fella.
Yeah.
And I will never forget calling DiMarzio. This is pre-internet.
When you could do that.
I spent probably 45 minutes to an hour talking with Steve Blucher at DiMarzio about John Petrucci's tone and pickup choices, and he helped me pick out pickups.
Nice.
And I will never forget that experience, obviously, because it was 90 something and it's, a million years later. And I still remember how cool Steve Blucher was. I mean, that was the guy that worked with John Petrucci on his pickups back then. And he was
Right.
like, he spent that much time, maybe a tenth of his day on the phone with me, just
Yeah.
chatting about pickups. And he talked to me about how John's tastes had changed between records and how he was going for a more bluesier feel and how this and that. And it was just kind of cool to get Steve's like take on the whole thing.
Absolutely. That's really cool too. And the the humbucker that I put in that Hello Kitty guitar came from the Seymour Duncan custom shop.
Mm.
So I didn't spend that much time on the phone. I called him up and said, "Hey, this is what I want based on what I knew about the guitar and stuff."
Yeah, I
But
think we should do an episode on the fact that I think we're living in the golden age of replacement pickups. I
yeah, we
mean,
might be, man. It's pretty cool.
it's even Fender, who is like, it's Fender, big evil corporation. Replacement pickup wise, if you're going for like Strat sounds, I don't think you can do a whole lot better these days than just getting straight up set of Fender custom shops.
Yeah, I'm no argument. Absolutely no argument. I did that for one of my Strats and it sounds fantastic.
So you mentioned
And
it briefly when you were doing the Hello Kitty guitar.
well, yeah,
That
hey, I want to ask you a question before we move on.
okay.
So back then you were looking at DiMarzio. Obviously, you're familiar with Seymour Duncan. What's your go-to for pickups now?
Oh, so that's kind of a trick question because I don't think I have replaced the pickups in any of my guitars that I currently have.
Well, you've been buying really good guitars the last 10 years.
I have, like, I stopped buying intentionally. I stopped buying quantity and started focusing on
Right.
the instrument as a whole because I wanted to stop buying instruments that needed work. I'm saying in air quotes. I
No, I
mean,
get you. I
a
get
Paul
you.
Reed Smith really doesn't need work, but there are times there are Paul Reed Smith guitars that you're like, this thing is great, but the pickups got to go. But the McCarty, the one I have now, the
594.
594. Yeah,
You're welcome.
my brain. Yeah, the 594 does not need replacement pickups.
Okay.
It was perfect out of the box. The custom shops out of the box perfect. In
Yeah.
fact, the one of the custom shops has that EVH pickup, and that is perfect out of the box. The Tyler right now is the only guitar I have that has a replacement pickup in it, and it's only in the neck. It came with Tyler. I'm sorry, it came with Duncan straight up single coils in both the neck and the middle, and I replaced the neck with a little 59 because I wanted a thicker neck pickup sound.
Yeah. Good choice.
Okay, but you asked a question, and I'm going to answer your question. 99% of the time, I'm going to go with the Duncan.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm going to look at them first. I haven't looked at DiMarzio as a primary choice in a long time. That said, if I can't find what I want with Duncan, if it's like a humbucker, I might go Fralin, I might go Lawler. But if I don't like, and now if it's a Strat and I don't want custom shops, I'd probably go Fralin first and then Lawler.
Yeah.
Those are my top choices. But the thing is, there's so many great brands out there right now that I haven't even explored. There's just so many great options, especially in like that PAF market where people are trying to duplicate that PAF sound. There's
Right.
a million of them out there, and I'm sure they're all really good. What
Kind of
about
like
you?
clones, huh?
Don't get me started on that. What's your pickup of choice these days, my friend?
I go straight to Fralin every time. Lindy Fralin is he's local.
He's a neighbor.
Well, I mean, I ain't bragging about it, but it's nice to be able to get an email. Your pickups are ready, and go downtown and pick them up.
It's kind of dope.
It is kind of dope. And
Yeah.
I know that I can call the shop there and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to achieve this thing. And they'll say, well, then try this.
That's
And
in the age of customer service. I have emailed them even recently, and they respond quickly and with a detailed response. Fralin is no joke. Yeah.
yeah, and the quality of the product stands up to scrutiny. Not that Lawler isn't anything but awesome, but Fralin is local. I could go downtown and pick them up. So that's what I'm doing. And whether it's single coil, humbucker, single coils that look like humbuckers that look like single coils, P90s, Jazz Masters, Jaguars. I put a set of their Jaguar pickups in my classic Squire Classic Vibe Bass 6, which I'm going to be straight with you. Can I be straight with you, Andrew, here?
I'd prefer it.
That guitar coming out of the box was a hot effing mess.
Mm.
There was so much wrong with it. I was astounded. I was astounded at how poor everything was with that guitar.
You were write a angry letter to the company upset at
Yeah.
that thing, weren't you? But you
So
didn't do that.
why didn't I return it? Well,
Why didn't you return
because
it?
there was no other option. I wanted a Bass 6.
That's it. No one else
And
makes them.
yeah, this was before the Vintera 2 line came out, and you could get a halfway decent one that was made in Mexico.
Yep.
So the first thing I did was call the folks at Fralin and say, hey, listen, this is what I want to do with my Bass 6. And they're like, you're not going to believe this, but Lindy just bought a 1964 Bass 6 and he loves it. And I said, I want pickups to sound like that, and then make the bridge pickup reverse polarity so that it's hum canceling, because I'll use it in combination with one of the other two pickups. And they said, not only did they say that's no problem, they thought that was such a great idea. They started making that as a set that they now sell on their website.
That's awesome.
For Bass
That's
6.
Fralin for you, man.
Yeah.
For an esoteric guitar like the Bass 6.
Yeah. So they have an option.
That's great.
Right? Do they have a bunch of them on the shelf? I doubt it, but you can order a set right off the thing and you'll have it in less than 6 weeks.
Yep. And it's worth the wait.
Yeah. So yeah, my favorite pickup that I got from them is called a Big Single, and it's a pole-less humbucker sized single coil, and it's in the neck of my McCarty Rosewood.
Okay.
And the reason I changed that pickup is because when I got it, it already had Fralins in it, but it had P92s, and they sound fantastic. I don't care for the way they sound.
Mm-hmm.
They don't sound like me.
Right.
And so it had two P92s. I put a pure PAF in the bridge and a Big Single in the neck, and now that guitar sounds like me.
I love it. So you mentioned earlier about your Hello Kitty experience.
I did. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, and I actually have it's almost a Hello Kitty. It is a Friedman. It is pink. It is pink. Now with all the light, it's washed out, but this is pink.
That is truly pink.
Yeah. So, but it's like relic, so it's like, I don't know, light pink. Anyway,
yeah.
If you can
Faded
see,
pink.
Yeah, you can see here that there's a volume knob on there.
There is.
Yeah, really unique, right? A volume knob on a guitar.
Volume knob on a guitar, crazy.
Yeah. You know what's really unique about it?
What's that?
Is I put that on myself. I replaced. Ooh. Yeah. So, folks, the next item, DIY upgrades, electronics. Now, reason I replaced that one is because the original one broke.
You broke it, yeah.
I broke it with my mad volume skills.
Womp, 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 snap.
Yeah. So, but I don't think I've bought a guitar in the last 20 years that if it was under $1,000, I didn't immediately replace the electronics with the pickups.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you're talking a foreign guitar, an import, even a lot of the Japanese guitars come with mini pots in them.
Not even.
It's okay, man. This is a safe space. You can say it.
Gibson SG, made in the USA. PCB board knobs.
Yeah.
PCB.
Yeah.
I took the control panel off, and there was 4 PCB mounted knobs.
Yeah.
Dropped into the control cavity.
Horrifying.
It was a horror show.
Yeah.
So why replace the all I'm doing is it's a volume or tone knob in 3-way. Why replace? Okay. So longevity.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily sound better out of the gate, but they will last you forever.
They sound that way for longer.
Right. And when it comes to switches, they will feel better.
Yeah.
You've ever played a guitar with a cheap switch and it feels like there's no detent?
Yeah.
It's just a really good, switch.
Or it's hard to click. Yeah.
Yeah. So electronics are key. And also they're easier to clean.
Yeah.
So when they do eventually get a little dirty, you can spray a little contact cleaner in there and they're brand new again. The other thing, and the reason we recommend this is it gives you an opportunity to practice your soldering skills and frankly redo the incredibly shoddy soldering job that they did at the factory.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Sometimes I am amazed people get paid for this work, and then I realize they don't get paid much.
Right.
Yeah, so getting some really good braided wire or just straight like colored wire is fine, but replacing the just redoing the solder joints and laying down a good bed of solder and getting the ground connections done properly and making sure
Yeah.
that everything's, shrink wrapped so you don't get noise and just get it, just do it first. Again, total satisfaction. I love doing it because it makes me feel like I did something productive, but also it'll sound like that for years. You
Yeah.
won't have to stress about extra noise and all this garbage. And yeah, just electronics, man.
And that's
CPS pots or alpha pots, just do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the easier things to do because all you have to do is take the old wires off, swap the parts, put the wires back exactly where they were. So
Bingo.
you don't have to try and figure it. Like I've got several guitars with really complicated wiring schematics that I had to draw out,
Mm-hmm. Or use your phone and take pictures or whatever.
and they're complex,
Yeah.
And I had to figure out one of those stinking S1 pots that
Ooh.
Fender puts in, and all I needed it to do was tap the pickup. It wasn't that complicated, but I replaced an S1 pot with a newer S1 pot, and the circuit board was different, and so I had to figure that out, man. And I thought I was going to lose my freaking mind.
Yeah,
But I eventually got it because the guitar was apart and I had to get it back together. But it was not fun.
now there is one caveat to replacing pickups and electronics that
What's that caveat
there,
Andrew?
if it's a 335 style guitar,
Pay somebody to do it.
thank you.
Yeah.
We've said this in previous episodes, and also we did an episode where we talked about soldering skills. So we understand if you as a player, you our 3 listeners may not be a replace my own pickups and electronics guy or girl or whatever. Be that, get that, learn that skill, become that person. You will thank us later in life.
And then pay somebody to do your hollow body anyways.
Period. End of story. Do not be a hero. There is no shame in admitting defeat when it comes to a 335. It is a living nightmare.
Yeah. I don't even admit defeat. I just go straight to, hey, Doug, that's good stuff. All right. What's next on our list of DIY upgrades and mods that anybody can undertake, Andrew?
Anyone can undertake. Well, so probably not as common, but I think this one's pretty common, especially with good replacement hardware out there. And that is replacing either your tremolo bridge or your stop tail bridge and tailpiece. If it's like a Les Paul style guitar, just a better quality bridge and or tremolo can make a humongous difference.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where if you've bought a inexpensive import guitar, from my perspective, if you're going to upgrade the pickup and you're not upgrading the hardware that comes into contact with the strings, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because a lot of those guitars, especially the ones with stop tails, come with crappy pot metal bridges and tailpieces that are only meant to hold the strings in place.
Just an anchor for the strings.
Just an anchor for the strings, exactly. And so, you've you got a company like Callahan, who is really well known for making Strat bridges.
Yeah.
And, they've got different options. You can get it with a steel block. You can get it with a brass block. You can do all these different things to tweak it to your satisfaction. But the fact of the matter is, you're replacing cheap, crappy alloys with real machined metal parts that are not only going to sound better, but they're going to perform better in the long run.
Yeah, sometimes, so I'll backtrack a little and say, you don't always have to replace the entire tremolo bridge, but at the least replace the saddles.
Yeah, at least.
And
And
maybe even the block, the block underneath, if you can, because
yeah,
that adding weight to that, adding a good metal, like a hunk of metal back there, can make a difference.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it improves tone and increases sustain. And I'm not just making that up, folks. There's science behind it.
Like legit science.
Yeah, like actual science.
Yeah.
I don't throw that word around easy.
No. And also, like, again, if you're getting a Les Paul style guitar, seriously consider upgrading your tailpiece and your bridge, because I
Yeah,
assure you, unless you bought a custom shop, you can do better than what's on the guitar.
yeah, yeah. Now, when it comes to those kind of two piece tune-o-matic style bridges, are you a wrap over or a run through?
I'm straight up run. I run through,
Okay.
unless it's meant to be a wrap over. Like, Paul Reed Smith did a wrap over for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I always wrap over my Gibson tune-o-matic styles. I run the tailpiece all the way down to the body. I put the string in through the front and I wrap it over the top.
mm,
And the E string, I'll not just run it over, but I'll run it through the hole again and then run it over. Um, just because I discovered a long time ago when I used to keep trying to love Les Pauls, that I break E strings on them. I play pretty hard, and
sounds like a new version of the Gibson knot, Wes.
it kind of is, but it's on the other side, and it's much easier to detach from the guitar when it's time to change strings.
All right, that's an interesting piece of advice. All right, so kids, wrap the strings around several times. That locks them in
No,
place.
not several times, just once on the high E only. And I didn't start doing that until I got my first Paul Reed Smith, which was a McCarty soap bar, and I loved that wraparound bridge. The PRS standard wraparound bridge is both art and science. It is a thing of beauty, and unless you are using a weird set of strings and an odd tuning, it will intonate perfectly with any standard set of strings. The only thing it can't handle is, for that I know for sure, is like, drop B, where you're using a bass string on the low E,
Right.
or anything with a wound G string. Won't intonate right with a wound G string.
And what did they eventually do? They replaced that wraparound with the adjustable.
Yeah, which is fine for some of the higher end guitars that they had. They had an adjustable wraparound. And my McCarty that I've got came with one of those on it. The guy who had it before me replaced the original, but I was heartbroken that he didn't keep the original bridge, because I would have put it right back on.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I don't often wax poetic about a
hardware.
bridge, but that seriously, man, that PRS wraparound was really just a beautiful piece of hardware.
I mean, they completely eliminated the need for you. I mean, you could still intonate the guitar because it had two adjustable screws on either side of the.
Yeah, there's a little Allen set screw inside it, and you would push that against the post to move the tailpiece back a little bit.
Right, on just either side, but you didn't have to intonate every string. So they made your job a million times easier. And then adjusting your action was just as easy, because it was just adjusting the action on either side of the E strings. And once you got it tweaked, it was already shaped to perfectly match the radius of the fretboard.
Yeah.
It was a work of art.
It really was.
Yeah. Speaking of works of art, another thing you can absolutely do, and I highly recommend you do it, especially again on the inexpensive guitars, better tuners, better quality tuners.
Oh, absolutely.
Locking tuners, if you can stand them.
I like a locking tuner. So here, I'm gonna can I is this a safe space for me, Andrew? Can I gripe a little bit here?
This is a safe space for you.
All right. So in 2020, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was during the pandemic lockdowns. I engaged in a little retail therapy, and I bought myself a brand new from Chicago Music Exchange. It was a Chicago Special American Professional 2 Stratocaster.
Nice.
And they spec'd them out with fat 50s pickups and full rosewood necks.
Wow.
You know, I'm a sucker for a rosewood neck.
Who isn't?
Yeah. And they had them in Lake Placid blue, which is a beautiful color.
Yep.
And so I got one. And it was my first new Strat that I'd bought in a long time. American, and remember the name of the model, American Professional 2. Professional. And I pulled this thing out of the box and it did not have locking tuners on it. How do you sell a guitar called Professional with a whammy bridge and not put locking tuners on it, stock from the factory?
In 2020.
In 2020. I was offended. And so the first thing I did to that was put locking tuners on it. And Fender locking tuners, they're so easy to do because the way Fender does their tuners is, okay, so a tuner has to have 2 points that are connected to the guitar. It's got the nut on the face of the headstock, but then on the back it has a set screw that's, you drill a little hole into the headstock and you put the set screw in it, and that keeps the tuner from rotating in its hole.
Right.
So that keeps the tuner where it's supposed to be. And now the older style, it may look like an H or a trapezoid. It might have 2 set screws. It might have shared set screws, but there's going to be set screws. Well, Fender did away with the set screws. And it's got to be 20 years. It's maybe more, because I think my 91 American Standard had this style. So what they do is, for each tuner, there are 2 additional set holes drilled into the back of the neck. And then each tuner has 2 little pegs that stick off of it. And so you just slide the tuner in, you tighten down the nut, and you're done. Done. D-U-N-N-E, done.
Doesn't either do they or did they Schaller make Fender's tuners for them?
I don't know the answer to that question.
All right, because I thought they did, because I thought that they had that Schaller look and feel to them, and frankly, they're just great.
Yeah. And what you're getting when you buy an upgraded tuner is you're getting, much like when you upgrade your components, your electrical components, you're getting better parts. You're getting better, more accurately, more consistently cut gears inside the tuner. You can't even see the upgraded parts.
No, they're inside the casing,
which is but it's there. And you get a often you will get a better
gear ratio,
right? So that it changes the gear ratio on a tuner, has to do with how many times you turn the button to get the post to go around one full rotation.
So the higher the ratio, the more fine tuning you can do at the tuner.
Yes.
And they're more sensitive. And in addition to when you say the better gear, the reason why better gear matters is because when you start tuning, it won't feel like you're tuning against sandpaper.
Right.
It'll be smooth. The string will move faster. Like it's just a better experience, and they'll last longer, much longer. I mean, I have a good set of locking tuners on my 90s Strat. They've never been touched. They've never needed maintenance. They work perfectly, and the guitar stays in tune like a champ.
And I bought an American Special Strat earlier this year, and once again, it's a variation of the Professional line, and it did not come stock with locking tuners, but I knew it this time, so I wasn't angry when I pulled it. Actually, I didn't pull it out of the box. I got it from a shop used, but that's beside the point. But when I ordered a set of Fender locking tuners, I discovered that, so you can get them in different finishes. You can get them in shiny or matte, which if that's your thing, you can get matte finish, matte silver. But you can also get full-size buttons, or you can get what they call vintage size buttons. And so for this guitar, I got the vintage size buttons for no other reason, Andrew, than that they were $24 cheaper than the standard size buttons, because they were on sale. The shop I bought them from was blowing them out. They might be discontinued by now for all I know. But I like them. I dig them. I love the look on the big CBS era headstock. I think it looks fantastic. And of course their Fender quality. This is good stuff that Fender makes for their locking tuners. But Schaller makes excellent locking tuners. Spurzl makes amazing locking tuners. You can even get locking tuners. I think the Planet Waves tuners are out there. And as you tighten them, when you're restringing your guitar, as you tighten them, they trim the string for you.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah. Now, do you remember when you first got into PRS, what their locking tuners were like?
The wings.
The wings.
Yeah. Once you got used to them, an ingenious design.
Yeah.
Once you understood how they work, but when you are still learning, a waking nightmare.
Yeah, you don't want a learning curve with your locking tuners, and I think that's why they went away from those to the screw top ones.
Yeah, and if the wings broke, which they were not prone to do, but
it could happen.
Getting replacements very difficult.
Yeah,
at least
I still have in my parts stash a set of PRS winged locking tuners with and follow me on this will mean something to you, Andrew, and maybe one person that listens to this, the shared D&G set screw.
Ooh,
yeah,
dude, that's going back a ways.
Yeah, and I've had them for years. I pulled them off of a client's guitar and he didn't want them back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I cut $25 off his bill and I kept the tuners.
Well, you made out, because
yeah,
I'm pretty sure you could sell them for a lot of money.
Yeah, they go for hundreds of dollars. But my hope is that I'll be able to get an old PRS, like a custom 24 someday. And, maybe it'll be busted up. Maybe it'll need work. And now I've got a set of tuners to go right on it.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Or, someday when I need to retire and pay the rent, they'll be worth thousands of dollars by then.
Someone will buy it. All right. So the next upgrade, now we're getting into like truly DIY, like anyone can do these next few.
Yeah, I think anybody can change their tuners. You need a 1/2-inch wrench.
You might be giving,
or a deep socket.
Be giving people a little bit too much credit there, my friend.
Maybe. So what's next on our list, Andrew?
Next on the list, in my opinion, a true DIY classic for those of us that play gigs and remember the days when Steve Vai used to throw his guitar around his neck with aplomb.
I'm talking about the Yankee Rose.
Yeah, we all remember those DiMarzio strap locks. Ugly as blue shit.
Yeah. It was like a little piece of leather with a plastic clip on the end of it, and you screwed it directly to the guitar.
Yeah.
So you could unclip the strap, but you still had these dongles hanging off of it.
Yeah, like pigtails.
Yeah.
With plastic ends that would dent the finish on your expensive guitars.
Yeah.
But nowadays,
or break.
Yeah, those fancy folks at Schaller and DiMarzio.
Dunlop.
Oh, Dunlop. Wait, DiMarzio, Dunlop and Schaller probably make two of the most popular strap locks outside of those DiMarzio clip locks.
Yeah.
Planet Waves makes them too now. But so strap locks are, in my opinion, one of those DIY mods that are like overkill, but for a reason.
Yeah.
Because nobody, and I mean nobody, wants their guitar, no matter where they are, to fall off of the strap and hit the ground. Period.
Yeah,
it's not fun. And I've seen it. I've done it.
It's happened. Yeah.
Awful.
You want to know something cool? I don't know if you know this, but this is one of my Rickenbackers here.
It's a Rickenbacker.
It's a Rickenbacker. And this is a Schaller strap lock that I'm pointing to for those of you that are listening to it. But it's not screwed into the wood. It's an insert. It's a threaded. If I took this out, it has the screw welded to the bottom of it, and it's got an insert, which irritates me because I don't use Schallers. I use Dunlops.
Not for that guitar.
Not for this guitar. I have two Ricks. I have this one in a 12 string, and I have to have a special strap set aside just for the Ricks.
Ugh.
which is a little bit of a hassle, but it's worth it because I don't ever worry about accidentally dropping this guitar. And I put some thread lock on the screw part because they do work themselves back out.
They can. That's the thing with strap locks. So just heads up, folks, when you buy strap locks, most of the time these days, the screw that you use to screw that strap lock into the guitar will be bigger than the original screw that kept your original strap button on. And the reason for that is because they want it to be hard to get in there because they don't want it to somehow back its way out.
They want it to be hard to get out.
Right. And they know that you are not going to, fill that hole with drill it, dowel it, glue it, and then re-drill it. They know you're not going to do that. You're going to just put the strap on where it was. So they make that screw bigger, and they also mess with the thread size a little. So it really works its way in there.
Yeah.
In case you missed that, works its way in there.
Yes.
And the thing is, if you take that out, you've now got a bigger hole than the original strap button.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
So here's what I recommend people do when they put strap locks on a guitar that did not have strap locks on it previously. Number one, take the old screw out, take the old strap buttons off. Mm-hmm. Number two, take the screw from the strap locks and drive the screw in about 3/4 of the way without the strap button on it. Mm-hmm. Then take that screw back out, go in the bathroom or some other place in your house that you have a bar of soap, rub some soap on the screw, then put it through the button, put it back in the guitar that way, and drive it down. And now if you want to switch back, say you sell the guitar and you want to keep your strap lock buttons, you're now going to be putting smaller screws back in there because of course you kept the original strap buttons, didn't you, Andrew?
I sure hope you did.
Yeah. So take the strap locks screws out, put just a couple of dabs of any kind of glue like Elmer's glue or wood glue, not super glue, but glue that's okay for crafting.
Wood glue.
And then cram 2 or 3 toothpicks down in the hole and snap them off level with the guitar. Use some wire trimmers, wire cutters if you need to trim them off, and then put your old screw in
after the glue is dried.
Yeah, after the glue is dried. So and that'll give you really good sturdy connection. I've never had to do more than 2 toothpicks, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, me neither.
And usually what I do is I break the tip off because toothpicks are tapered, right? So if you just cram it down in there, you're putting the tapered tip at the bottom. So I break the tip off first and then push it down in so that the fat part of the toothpick is at the bottom of the hole.
Now, why is all of this even necessary? You may be asking. You may be asking, Andrew, haven't guitars been around for 1 million years? Why is it that we are still putting strap buttons on a guitar they're basically useless? And the answer is, I don't know. So a couple things I want to point out.
Do kids today even stand up with their guitars? Does it matter?
No one stands on Instagram or TikTok. Here's the thing. Paul Reed Smith, again, you said this in a previous episode. Basically, Paul Reed Smith released his first guitars. He addressed every nitpick that he possibly could. And one of them was ineffective strap button. So Paul Reed Smith strap button is really not all that different, except it's wider and shorter. And it takes real muscle to get a strap over it and just as much to get it off.
Yeah, I think a Paul Reed strap button is approximately 1/3 of an acre in area. They are huge.
Yeah,
and they're they're closer to the guitar, so there's not much wiggle room, and it's a beautiful design. Now, if it weren't for their width, they would be the perfect strap button.
Yeah. Now, the reason this is all necessary, my friends, is because I don't know if you can see this, but
I can see that
this is an Ernie Ball woven like just a regular
Yeah,
Ernie
it's
ball.
like a
This is
$20
literally,
strap.
yeah, now it's rainbow because I support the community. No, this is a $6 strap, my friend. Ernie ball, these are $6. They are everywhere. But see, this leather, I think it's leather. It's either leather or something
It's
else.
pleather, leatherette.
Yeah, this gets soft over time. It gets really buttery soft.
Yeah.
It's really quite soothing to rub on your face. It's almost cathartic, but they get really buttery soft and then they pop off the strap button like like it's their job.
Yeah. I feel like the
it's
next
their
time you
job.
rub that on your face, we should play some Barry White.
All right. If we had an editor, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm not even drunk tonight. Maybe I got a contact high from the folks outside that are smoking that skunk. Anyway, so here's the thing. These things get so soft, they pop off your guitar like it's their job, I said.
Yeah.
And usually it's at a gig.
Yeah.
Or
Almost
when you're
always.
standing on concrete.
Yeah.
Or, when you
Whatever's
have
going
a
to be
$5,000 guitar hanging around your neck. So
yeah,
that's why strap buttons have become necessary.
The most embarrassing for you or the most damaging for your guitar.
Yeah.
That's when they fall off.
So you may be saying, well,
that
Andrew,
looks like a slightly wide strap button, Andrew.
You may be saying, Andrew, do I really have to get strap locks? And the answer is no. Just get better strap buttons. Now, the folks at Friedman use these really good, actually, like they look like vintage Fender strap buttons.
They do. They look like 1.5 times wide as a regular Fender button.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't swing this around my neck Steve Vai style. I don't trust them that much.
Yeah.
But they definitely provide more bite than like a traditional strap button.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing you can do, if you don't want to put new strap buttons on your guitar, you can do what a lot of folks do, which is get these rubber washers that used to come on Grolsch beer bottles. That's where you would find them because they had that weird old fashioned flip top. And you take those and you put the strap on, and then you put those rubber washers on over the top of the strap, and that
first of all,
hold them in.
Don't say strap on. Don't say strap on. Secondly,
there you go.
Right here.
Yeah.
Now, this is a fancy one by Levi's or Levy, or
it looks like you can use it as a pick.
Yeah, but it's soft and supple like my ass, and this fits right over. Fits right over the strap. Now, again, I don't know if I trust this to like whip my guitar around my neck Billy Sheehan style, but it does a pretty good job of keeping the strap connected to the guitar.
Yeah, very good.
That's what I didn't say there.
Nice. Yes, I think we got to give Jeff LaBar some props. He was a well-known guitar flipper as well.
Did you say Jeff LaBar in this conversation?
I did say Jeff LaBar. He was
my God.
He was a good guitar player, and much more importantly, he was a nice person. And
he was a decent fella. What?
He passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately.
Aww.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Jeff. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He was in Cinderella, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, I didn't love Cinderella, but he was a decent player. And Tom Kiefer lives on.
Kiefer lives on.
So while we're talking about strap-ons,
straps on,
here's a DIY mod that literally, even the densest of you, even the densest of us, can do with merely a credit card. And that is, for the love of God and your own back, please buy yourself, unless you play a banjo, please buy yourself a 3-inch wide strap. Stop using, he said, looking at his own straps, a 2-inch wide strap. Stop doing it. I'm going to tell you why, kids. Because the weight distribution in a 3-inch strap is spread out more over the strap, and it relieves the tension and pressure on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And your shoulder and back will thank you over the course of a long evening of guitar wankery. And
Oh,
what the fuck just happened in my Zoom meeting?
you just got a thought bubble thumbs up.
That
Is
is
it because you did this?
absolutely dope. I can't
Oh,
make it happen again.
can't
See,
make
it's
it
just,
happen again.
dude, okay, first of all, I'm loving the Zoom shit that's going on during these
It's
random, whatever
funny.
setting I adjusted, I will never change back. It is
Yeah.
absolutely the greatest thing about this show. Okay. So the reason why I'm using 2-inch straps, he said in a hypocritic fashion, is I don't play this guitar that much. And when I do, it's sitting down.
Right.
But the guitars I play standing up all have 3-inch wide leather, real leather straps. 3-inch wide because of the weight distribution, and real leather because I'm a snob.
Well, but leather also gives you some things. So here's my strap that I use for my Rickenbackers. And it's not, I don't think it's 3 inches wide. I think it's 2.5.
No, it is. That's definitely, I can tell 3 inches. Ask me how I do.
But it's also, I don't know if you can see this, Andrew. If you're not
Wow,
watching this,
padded,
it's padded,
thick as
right? It's, yeah, this
thick.
is thick padding. And this is actually a custom made strap. It's one of the most extravagant things I've ever done for myself.
Wow,
It's
look at
from a
you.
company called Well Hung, which I think is hilarious.
All right. See, we did not even have to go there, and we went there.
Yeah.
That's
But I got
awesome.
two of them. I got a black one and a brown one.
All right, I'm definitely going to be well hung at my next gig.
And they're fantastic. And the guy, he's on the gear page. He's a
Cool.
good guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's one of the best things I've ever done for gigs, because I used to struggle with heavy guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh yeah, well, why don't you just buy a lighter guitar? Okay, well, sometimes the guitar that speaks to you happens to be heavy,
Thank you. Thank
you
you.
know?
And you should not be shamed for that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be. But I think right now my heaviest guitar is like 8.5 pounds, which is
Yeah.
not really all that heavy.
No, I don't. Yeah. None of us, let's just put it this way. There's no Les Pauls in either house. So,
Yeah. I had
although
a
there
7
is something behind you.
that vaguely looks less poly.
Wow, it sure does.
Do you want to see
That's
what that is?
well,
Let me
we're way off topic, but that appears to have a single cutaway, if I'm not
it,
mistaken.
it is. And you know how much I hate a single cutaway.
Yeah, I do. Wes is grabbing this monstrosity. It looks like it weighs 14 pounds. It's definitely bound, single cutaway. Boy, that looks like a Les Paul. What is that?
So it's a
Oh,
flat top. It's semi-hollow. It's bigger than a Les Paul, bigger
semi-hollow.
across the bouts.
Who
And
makes
here,
that monstrosity?
TV Jones.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That thing is sharp.
Yeah. And it's normal width.
Love that
Down.
TV Tronic in the neck, and it's got a matte black finish. Those of
Yeah.
you that aren't watching this on YouTube, you're missing out.
Set neck, made in Japan.
Made in Japan.
I got this used, yeah. And
When did you get that, my friend?
2019, maybe.
So pre-pandemic. I've never
Yeah.
seen that.
Or
And is
early pandemic. It might have been like the spring of 2020.
that's not a baritone.
No, but
What-
they do make a baritone, and that's kind of how they got started. Brian Setzer wanted a baritone, and Gretsch wouldn't make him one, but TV Jones would. So TV Jones did, and then they started making this. This is called the Spectrasonic Standard, and it's just normal looking. They also make one called the Spectrasonic Deluxe or Supreme or something, I forget.
Got that
And
dope TV Tronics pickup in the neck.
yeah, it's got a fancier finish and a Bigsby on it. But I rewired it when I put the neck pickup in. I rewired it so it's volume instead of volume tone, because I like to have two volume, knobs.
Nice.
So,
I
yeah,
like
and it's semi hollow, and it's a 24 3/4 scale.
nice.
And it's a fantastic guitar. It's fun to play. It's not too terribly heavy. And I like it, especially because when I stand up on stage with it, it makes me look like a normal sized person because it is a
It's
oversized
big.
guitar.
Yeah, it's nice. All right, so I'm moving on from straps and strap locks and better straps and strap-ons and all that, because the next DIY, again, I think this is a DIY mod that even the even those of us with that are all thumbs and can't even like tie our shoes correctly, I think even we can do this one.
Yeah.
And that is giving the back of your neck, the lacquered neck or whatever, finished neck, a satin finish.
Yeah.
Taking off maybe at least the top layers, if not completely down to the bare wood, but certainly taking off like a little bit of that finish with some steel wool or like 3M, something to
Yeah.
just take the edge off that like super, super glossy
Grippy.
finish,
Yeah.
grippy when you're sweating outside. What do you have you done this and what do you think of it?
I have done this to varying degrees. And so I had an Eric Johnson Strat, which was a lovely guitar that
Hmm.
I absolutely could not bond with because the neck carve was a V and it was
Uh,
just super uncomfortable. But it also had super sticky, glossy paint on the back of the neck. So apparently Eric's sweat does not interact with the gloss. And so his fingers don't have a problem with it,
right.
but mine did. So I just used, and actually, I didn't even do it. I had my tech do it because I didn't trust myself. So I'm not sure what he used. I just asked him to take the shine off,
Hmm.
and he did it in such a way that when I sold the guitar, I called him and I said, okay, I'm selling the guitar. And he said, here's what you do. And I buffed it right back and you would never know that he'd ever done it.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But when I mentioned my Classic Vibe Bass 6 a few minutes ago, that was a hot mess coming out of the box. I think the gloss on the back of the neck was still wet when I got it. It was so sticky.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Home Depot and I got some very, very fine flexible sanding blocks that are meant to be used on drywall. And I took it almost down to the wood. I burned through the finish in a couple of places because I was over eager,
Yeah.
but I have no regrets.
So,
That the finish on that guitar's neck is just terrible.
so, in the past, I've done this to a couple of guitars. I haven't needed to do it to a guitar in a while, but in the past, what I used to do is used 4.0 like quadruple zero grade steel wool.
Yeah.
Now, even though I'm doing the back of the neck, I would usually wait until the strings were off the guitar and I would tape over the pickups so I wouldn't get like any steel wool shavings.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No. And then I would just like gently do it until it was at the right, like it felt right.
Yeah.
And for me,
Yeah,
it was never down to the bare wood.
you sand a little and you wipe it off with a damp, not a wet rag, because you want to get all that dust off.
Mm-hmm.
You sand it a little, you wipe it off, you test it. You sand it a little, you wipe it off, you test it.
Yep. Do a little bit at a time until it's right for you. And this is not something you have to do. But play a gig outside with your guitar in the summer.
In the summer,
And
yeah.
and
And
if you
see how
think
sticky it is.
or just a general gig where you sweat a lot, and if it doesn't bother you, don't bother. But if you're someone like me who it's like I need to feel. Now the other thing is I used to carry a little baby powder around with me, little travel style baby powder,
Wow, you are
because
sweaty.
even hey, listen, don't sweat shame me, but even with me taking the finish off, sometimes it's
Sticky.
bad. Yeah. And so a little bit of baby powder on your hands, and it helps at least for a song or two,
Yeah.
Plus, it looks like a professional gymnast, I don't know, there's something
You could get a rosin bag like a pitcher.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking
Now,
of satin, I did actually.
the next thing on your list is I'm a little surprised to see this on the DIY part of your list.
Oh, okay.
Because you wrote down now satin neck finish. I'm 100% with you right there. That is a DIY.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing on the list says satin body finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's dangerous, Andrew.
Is this a safe place, Wes?
It is for us. Yeah.
Okay. So, I have a thing for TV yellow guitars. Like,
Yeah. Who doesn't?
I've got a bunch of yellow guitars in the house, like
Yeah.
TV yellow, that, like, you know what I'm talking about.
And you're not even on TV that I know of.
No, not this year. Buttercream, they call it now. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I like these yellow guitars. But at one point, I thought my Strat was a little too yellow and a little too shiny.
Yeah. So you wanted to knock it down a bit.
I wanted to knock it down a bit and like just try my hand at relicking, and I did a little satin finish on the top of the guitar. And
Is that the one that Tracy bought you?
it is.
Oh, how'd she feel about that?
I didn't tell her.
Okay.
And if she's listening to this episode, I'm probably going to die. But here's the funny thing.
It still looks good. I've seen it.
Yeah, I actually returned the shine to it.
Oh, okay. That's why.
Because I didn't like how it looked when I was done. So I shined it back. I brought the shine back to it, and I thought, well, that was a complete waste of the day. All right, so let's talk about this, because I put that in there a little bit as a joke, but it leads into the next one, which is for real. And that is, you can, if you're brave enough and you want to try your hand at this, and you don't have access to a belt sander, and you decide you want to relic or age your guitar.
You said that just to trigger me, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
There's a lot of YouTube videos and websites now that teach you how to properly age or relic a guitar.
Yeah.
I've checked a couple out. It's actually quite fascinating. And if you take your time and you do it right, the results can be pretty awesome. But it's more than just taking the shine off your Strat like I did, like a dope. And it's definitely not using a belt sander.
Yeah,
so
the reason he keeps saying that, for those of you that are interested, is a long time ago, I sold a guitar to a guy, and a couple of weeks later, he sent me an email, super proud of his relic job that he did on my guitar that I sold him.
To be clear, super proud.
Super proud. And he had basically, all he had done was taken a belt sander to the upper bout and just ground it down to the primer. And that was his quote unquote relic job. And I was horrified. Horrified. And but I did also realize that once you sell a guitar, it's not your guitar. And that's life. And then I blocked his email, so he could never email me again.
You don't get a chance to tell your ex-girlfriend who she dates.
That's right.
Now, Wes, I believe,
horrified, Andrew, horrified.
I believe there is a way of relicking a guitar that takes a very long time, and it's very authentic.
Yeah. So you take up smoking before you ever start playing guitar. You got to smoke at least a pack to a pack and a half a day.
Kids, don't smoke.
Don't smoke. Please don't smoke. Basically, yeah, the time-honored method of relicking any guitar is to play it hours and hours every day.
For the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. But, I mean, you talk about somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Rory Gallagher, these folks that put honest wear onto their main gigging guitars. They were playing night after night for 2, 3, 4 sets. This is back in the age when you could smoke indoors everywhere, and almost everybody did,
and on airplanes.
Right. What's the point of having a non-smoking section on an airplane? It's an enclosed tube.
You're basically flying to China in a Tylenol capsule.
Yeah. And I say that having grown up with 2 parents who were smokers for my entire childhood.
Me too.
Yeah. And so, yeah, in cold weather, windows up, both parents smoking. Awesome way to grow up.
Yeah. How's that residual cancer working out for you? So, but Wes, I don't want to wait. And by the way, I don't want to put my own dings in my guitar when I play it.
Oh, that's the worst, man.
I want to put it on a bench and put dings in
and ding it on purpose. I get it. I think relic guitars look really cool as well. I
Mhm.
really do. Well, let me rephrase that. I think lightly relic guitars look really cool.
Professionally relic guitars.
Professionally, lightly
Ooh,
relic guitars look really
come.
cool.
You know what? I have seen heavy relics, even from Fender, that I go, why?
Wow. Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Why? Why?
My favorite new look for relicking is they pretend that you painted over the original finish
Yeah.
and it wears off and you can see a little bit of the original finish. And
Yeah.
like they did, I saw one that was a white over paisley and that just looked astounding. Yeah. So like
So
that.
yeah, so I'm gonna try to get a good angle. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this
Yeah. There. I can see the sunburst.
pink over the sunburst.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
a 2-color sunburst.
Yep. And the other custom shop Fender I have is black over yellow. You can see a little
Nice.
bit of the yellow in the, because me and yellow. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, that is perfect for me. But I'm too lazy to get up and get it. So
That's all right. That's cool. I know what you're talking about. I think that's a really cool look.
yeah,
So what
that is
I
cool.
like is for the finish to have a little bit of the crackle lines in it, maybe a couple of scratches or dings, small dings, for the plastic to look a little aged.
Mhm.
I guess they call that I think Fender calls it a closet classic,
Where it's
you
like
know.
it's literally been in the closet for 50 years.
Yeah, and it's just weather checking is what it is. It's heat cycles do that to old nitro paint.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um and so yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think it looks cool when it's done tastefully. Kind of
Right.
like it's kind of like fashion, right?
Yeah.
When
So
it's tastefully done, it's gorgeous.
story time. And
Hit me.
again, I may pay for this later, probably in divorce court. Um, so I'm gonna get it. Hold on.
Okay.
Entertain the folks.
Do 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 do
Okay.
do.
So
I hope we
I
don't get
know.
copyright struck for that.
Oh God, please don't make that happen. So it's hard to tell, but
Yeah,
this
it looks shiny.
is,
I see some dings.
yeah, it is relict, but it's not like super duper destroyed relict.
Yeah.
But you can see. Okay,
Journeyman, maybe. Is that what they call that?
I think so.
Like somebody who played it out, but not all the time.
My first ever custom shop Strat and my first ever relic guitar. And yeah, it was not cheap. And I've wanted one for a very long time. And when it showed up, I was excruciatingly happy. Everything from the case to the everything about this was like, it was perfect. It's like I dreamt about having a custom shop. This showed up, dream fulfilled. Maybe
Right.
the best part was they sold it used and I got a massive discount on it. So I didn't even pay what it normally would have cost. And it wasn't used, it's brand new. But for some reason they were blowing them out. I don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
Reputable dealer, didn't fall off the back of a truck. Here's the thing. Remember, I am ecstatic, deliriously happy. And I showed my wife, and when she saw the relic job, she went, "Ew, is it supposed to look like that?"
Oh no.
You could
Wah wah
feel
wah wah.
feel the life draining from my body. My soul left my body,
Oh
and all I had no, I had no, I had no words, Wes.
yeah.
But I might have died a little inside that day and lost a significant amount of respect for my wife because she has guitar cred. Like my wife can tell the difference between Les Pauls and Strats and Paul Reed Smiths, and she went to
Yeah.
the factory with us, and like she can talk the game, like she knows her
Yeah.
stuff. But when she saw that relic and she went, "Ew, is it supposed to look like that?" I thought I might I might go in the back and hang myself.
That's what I feel like when I see some heavy relics though.
I know, like why do you do that?
Yeah.
Why? All right.
So it looks like Fender's relic levels are closet classic, which is they call great shape with very little wear, maybe a few light scratches. Plastic and pick guards have started to age. Journeyman relic, and that's so think each level is the one before it plus.
Mm-hmm.
right? So Journeyman then has some dings on it, that says, oh, maybe it fell from a stand or somebody banged it into a table, but they consider it a well taken care of instrument that has been gigged out. Then
I
they
think
have,
that's fair.
then they have Relic, which is the Journeyman plus put it on tour for 30 years. Right.
Wow.
And that's I think probably what the majority of the relics that the custom shop does look like that. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it also, when you start getting up to that level, they've taken almost all of the finish off the back of the neck. And the thing I don't like about it when they do that is they make it look dirty,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I can handle if my guitar's relic, but I don't want it to look grungy.
Yeah, the Journeyman here has finish on the back of the neck, and originally I thought it wouldn't. I don't know why
Yeah.
I thought that, but I'm okay with it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay with it.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure if I got one in my hands, I'd be like, oh, this is amazing. And then the heavy relic is the heavy relic, that it's
It fell off the bus a few times.
battle hardened workhorse is what they call it.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So
and
we've gotten completely off track, but
no, we're
I'm not,
talking about relicking. We're still on the
yeah,
list.
I'm not saying you should relic your own guitar, but if you're going to find one you don't love,
And yeah, practice. That's
practice.
definitely something you want to practice on a lesser guitar first.
Yeah, or I mean, you could literally buy a brand new, or something Squire, and like just take it practice on something you're not going to keep.
Yeah. And you got to know if the finish on your guitar is nitro or poly. And if you're using a cheap guitar, it's probably poly.
Yeah.
Because that changes how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I always wish I could engage with a little relicking is when I replace a pick guard. If I want to change the pickup configuration on a guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and I put a new pick guard on it, then the pick guard is obviously brand new. And I want it to not look brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to move into some non-DIY upgrades and mods, just because I feel like these are still things, one, I'd highly recommend on most guitars, because most of them need them anymore, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And also, if you're really truly trying to make a guitar your own, these are things you could do. And some
Or
of them
have
aren't.
done.
Right.
I think,
and one of these in particular, I'm going to have experience with real soon.
Yeah, I think they cross over the DIY, non-DIY line because they require specialty tools. And some of those tools, you're muted. Some of those tools can be expensive.
Yeah. And or maybe a level of skill that you just may not have yet.
Or patience.
Yeah. Like putting a new nut on.
Yeah. Which can improve the sound and feel of almost every guitar that doesn't come stock with a bone nut on it.
Okay. We have talked about this in the past.
Repeatedly.
I'm going to say it again because we only have 23 listeners. The new nut is one of the best improvements. It's one of the most critical things. I can't say it enough. Where the strings contact the guitar is gold.
Yeah.
The nut is huge, not only because of how it sounds, but because of how the nut slots are cut. It will definitely affect how it stays in tune. And why wouldn't you want your guitar to stay in tune? Gibson.
Yeah. I actually had my last Gibson that I had was an ES137 custom.
Mm-hmm.
And it needed to be refretted. And when I had it refretted, I had the guy cut a new nut for it. And I asked him to angle the D and G slots.
Go figure.
Just slightly.
Can't imagine why. Why do you do that, Wes?
That guitar never went out of tune again.
So cutting a nut, actually not just cutting the slots, but replacing a nut in and of itself, not an easy job.
No.
I've done it. It does require special tools and some knowledge. But to me, it's one of those things that's worth paying someone to do properly.
Yeah. Because if nothing else, the tech you pay to do it is going to be able to do it a lot faster than you.
That's true.
And if he screws it up, he's not going to charge you for for cutting 2 nuts, because you didn't ask him to cut 2 nuts. You asked him to cut 1.
Right. Yeah. That's on him, not you.
Exactly.
Speaking of doing frets, another critical upgrade or modification that really affects playability and intonation,
Yeah.
if we're getting right down to it, is fret level, or frankly, new frets altogether if your guitar has like just the worst frets.
Yeah, getting your frets dressed, cleaned up by a pro, leveled and crowned. I mean, it can transform a guitar. It just like, you won't believe how much better. Now, of course, if you do that, the guitar has to be set up all over again. Because
But you know how to do that, don't you?
Yeah, you know how to do that. Or if you're paying somebody, they'll usually
do it. So here's an interesting, I said intonation because this actually surprised me. When I was coming up as a youngin,
as you do.
One of my first guitars was an HM Strat. Are you familiar?
I do. I have one. English. I'm only 2 beers in. I'm not even 2 whole beers in. This is my second. I'm halfway into my second beer, and I'm already forgetting how to speak English.
Wes, are you familiar with the HM Strat?
I am familiar with the HM Strat, Andrew. I happen to have a 1989 version myself.
Stop, you. God, what a humble brag. I missed that guitar so much. It was so great for such a cheap piece of garbage, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So then I needed new frets on it. Or actually, I thought I needed new frets. What it really needed was a good fret level. Right from the factory, it needed a fret level because...
Yeah, luckily it started with jumbo frets, so...
Yeah. Well, so it also had a Kaler Spider, as they do back in the day.
A 2720.
Could not get that thing intonated. I could not get this guitar intonated until I got the frets properly dressed. And then it intonated. There were spots on that neck that just would not intonate properly because of the shape of the frets. How you crown frets is huge. Yeah. So yeah, if you can't intonate a guitar and you've tried everything, including voodoo and prayer, just get the frets leveled. It may make a difference.
Yeah, that's probably what's going on. And yeah, I mean, a new frets, especially. I tried to do a fret job once. I got the frets out without destroying the guitar, the fretboard. I got the new frets in without damaging anything or destroying the guitar. I got them trimmed, but I could not get them radiused. I had the proper tools. I just did not have the skill. And I ended up taking that guitar to somebody else to finish it.
Okay.
And they did a good job. And his suggestion to me was, number one, practice on cheap guitars, not your nearly irreplaceable Clownburst mid 70s Les Paul.
Yeah, probably good advice.
Yeah. That guitar was so sweet before I worked on it. And he said, do 10 necks, do 10 fret jobs, and then maybe you'll start to get good at it.
Yeah, it takes a long time. I was doing them for a long time, and I don't even think I got good at it, but I was getting better.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of frets, I'm going to move on to something I've wanted to try on one of my guitars and haven't, because you're not supposed to do these to guitars that you love. You're supposed
Certainly
to practice.
Not the first time.
Nope. Rolled fingerboard edges.
Yeah, that's something that Fender started doing, I think, with the American Standard series back in the 90s. I could be wrong. And varying, other manufacturers have picked that up.
Yeah, they're like all doing it now.
But yeah, like, you know who doesn't do it? Rickenbacker. Their fretboards are 90-degree angles. which is fine. That's what they are. They're a Rickenbacker is a Rickenbacker, and that's really all that is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having that rolled edge just makes it so much more comfortable to play, especially if you're a thumb over person. If you're a
Yeah.
thumb over player, it's so much easier, so much nicer to play.
Yeah. So I was thinking about doing that on one of my guitars. I decided not to because, again, if I mess it up, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
But if you need to do that, if you think your guitar needs it, just take it somewhere. Just
Yeah.
let them do that. It's not hard.
Take it to a pro.
And then the
As a matter
last
of fact,
thing,
yeah, if you need to do that, combine it with a fret level or a refret and get it all done all at once.
I feel like a new instrument.
Yeah. And if those things don't work, what can we do, Andrew?
New neck.
Yeah.
So Warmoth has been out there since for a dog's age.
At least since the 80s.
Oh yeah, Warmoth has been out there for a long time. Warmoth, WARMOTH. They got the little turtle guy playing the guitar as their logo.
Yeah, which really they missed out on having the moth.
Well, do you know why it's a turtle?
I don't.
Because they started making replacement pick guards tortoiseshell.
That makes sense.
See that?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I have put more Warmoth necks on bodies than I can count because it became a very popular mod for a very long time. People just wanted a different shape. They wanted different radius.
Yeah.
Then Warmoth started doing the compound radius that is a really comfortable neck, especially if you like, the flatter radius up top for soloing, which a lot of people do these days. But they want that vintage feel lower in the register.
9.5
anyway,
or die.
Yeah. So here's the thing. My son has a Squier Jazzmaster and he likes the guitar, but doesn't like the neck. So we are going to be replacing the neck on his Jazzmaster. I emailed Warmoth over the weekend and they responded crisply on Monday morning,
mind you,
crisply with a significant amount of detail. That was very, very welcome.
Oh, I was going to say, did they overshare?
Nope. They were incredibly customer focused. They answered my questions crisply. They did not leave one stone unturned.
Nice.
And gave me the confidence that I need to replace the neck, because I have never replaced the neck on a Jazzmaster or a Squier, believe it or not. And I didn't know that if a Warmoth neck would fit a Squier. Turns out it will.
It will. Hooray!
So we're going to do that.
You might need to angle shim the Jazzmaster neck, though. Sorry.
That might have to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to have to make you're going to have to make a nut for it.
No, they're going to put a nut on it.
Oh, they're going to put a nut on it for you.
And they're going to fret it.
Well, I mean, they all fret them, but don't they say that you might have to do a little bit of fret work?
So that's the thing. So that my question to them was, will it come slotted, the nut? And it will. And I said, will it come ready to play? And their response was,
well,
sort of.
Yeah.
Like they level them, but a guitar is a guitar.
Right.
When you get it on there, who knows what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
So I'm planning on having to need it leveled.
Yeah. And you're not going to get a neck from Warmoth that has like wavy frets.
No.
Like, I think the two Warmoth necks that I've gotten over the years, both of them needed a little bit of fret work, but also both of them were eminently playable if I just raised the action a tiny bit.
Yeah. When I was working in the shop, we never bought Warmoth necks that were fretted or had a nut installed. We absolutely insisted on doing that in the shop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when someone's coming in to do something like that at a professional shop, you expect that. But we want to see if we can make this work.
Yeah.
And if it needs leveling, there's enough guys locally that can do a level.
Cool.
So I'll keep you posted on that. And I'm also expecting the nut will not be 100% perfect.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, setting the height of the strings at the nut is a little bit of an art form in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a little bit of voodoo. Do you have nut files?
No.
Okay.
No. So we're literally going to install the neck, string it up, and see how it plays and feels.
And see what happens.
Probably going to need work, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, we expect that.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah.
And because it's a Jazzmaster, I recommend like a 0.5 degree shim in there. That'll really help it, especially with the Squires.
Okay. I'd be curious if they already have one in there. Like, when I take off the original neck,
I doubt it.
Okay.
You want a full pocket shim.
Oh, a full pocket shim.
Yeah, don't fart around with cereal box cutouts.
Oh,
Get
no,
real full pocket shim. It's better. Trust me on that.
I'm probably
as your source for offset guitar information.
Yeah,
I want you to trust me on that.
Yeah, I realized as we got into the conversation that I told my son I would email you about this. So we're going to take this conversation offline because we might bore 90% of you non-offset listeners.
100%.
But I did want to talk to you about that, just because other things I want to know about before I get involved in this guitar. Because honestly, Jazzmasters are a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, they are.
All right. So
what do you want to add to that? I think we've hit the list pretty good.
Well, let's recap. Before you sell your piece of hot garbage, which I've done hastily,
change the pickups,
the electronics, just learn to work on your guitars, and you will the satisfaction you get from that. Wes, can you even describe how great it feels to like do something on your guitar and like it works and you're
it's like walking out of it's like leaving a walk-in freezer and walking into full sunshine. That's what it feels like.
I used to work at a Ponderosa Steakhouse on the line cooking steaks. And what I would say is it's almost like walking into the walk-in freezer off the line. And, air. No, it's just a really great feeling. And so, before you sell your hot mess to somebody else, try working on it yourself, fixing it, making it work for you.
Make it work.
Work that thing with a belt sander if you must.
All right. And a nice wide padded strap.
Exactly. Save your back. www.differentstringspodcast.com. Please and thank you. Drop in the comments your favorite mods. Have you taken a belt sander or screwdriver or hammer and chisel to a guitar? You have any horror stories you want to tell us? Just engage with us, for the love of God, please. Because, we've been doing this for almost 6 months. And, the other day we got an email and it said, I have a question.
And then didn't ask a question.
That was it.
That's just
the email was, I have a question.
Congratulations. It's good for a boy your age to have questions.
That's all he said. Left me hanging. I kind of want to know what this man's question was. I am genuinely upset that I'm going to lose sleep. I don't even know what.
It might have been about how to keep his strap on.
Why is the sky blue? Why are we here? Is there a greater purpose? I'm having a hard time keeping it up. Ask me something I can offer some advice. I have a question. Flatline. Ghosted me.
Oh, well, maybe they'll follow up with an actual question.
Unbelievable.
And on that note, everybody, I want to say thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Come back and join us for episode 17. This has been episode 16 of Different Strings, a guitar podcast, essential upgrades and DIY mods that anybody can do on their guitar, and some that maybe you should be better off paying a professional to do. Andrew gave out the URL, and be sure to come back for Music That Matters, which is going to be fantastic. Andrew's got the choice this time, and he's picked a banger, as he likes to say.
Yep.
Thank you.
Different